Karina, you've had a remarkable career in publishing spanning over 4 decades. You founded Anvil Publishing in 1990 with the mission to support local writers. You're a board member of the National Book Development Board in the Philippines. And you were also the director of Ateneo University Press. And now you are the curator for books and the head of the literary program for the Philippines Guest of Honor Project at the 2025 Frankfurt Book Fair. So thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So the Philippine book market has probably evolved a lot since you started. Can you tell us a little bit about that evolution, also in terms of its relationship to other English language markets and its support for Filipino languages and writers?
Okay, definitely in 4 decades, I've seen the industry, the book industry really evolve and grow. When I entered publishing in 1979, the biggest bookstore chain, which I also joined as junior editor, was just 90% imported books. The backstory for the imported books is that in the 1900s, when the American colonial master, so to speak, set up the public school system, they brought in American public school teachers. They were aboard a ship called the SSS Thomas. So that's why they were called the Thomasites. And they used English as medium of instruction. Instead of looking at the local languages and finding which one could be the common language, they used English. And so to support that public educational system, they started exporting all the books, the textbooks, everything, even literature, to support the system, the education. So, and that continues to date up to now. Our bookstores are still full of imported books. And one scholar who was looking into the colonial American rule even mentioned something like it was part of one of the laws that was really agreed upon and signed when we were granted independence in 1946, was that the Philippine book market was going to be an extension of the US book market. So we're really here, the ratio is 24 imported books to 1 local book. Wow. But that has, even after we've encouraged in the 90s, the 2 big developments was when we started Anvil. So the Anvil is still owned by the biggest bookstore chain, which is national. And the idea, the mandate, was to produce as many local books to parallel the genres and the kinds of books that we were getting from the United States and the UK. So it was a good time. It was a golden age in a way for book publishing, because the moment, after we publish a book, it went straight to 200 bookshops, because the biggest bookstore chain has, I think until now, 250 bookshops all over the country. So that was the ideal in publishing, a kind of golden standard. So, and also in the 90s, paralleled to what we were doing, and it was still largely English, because English was still the dominant language for publishing. Parallel to that was the growth of Filipino romances. So the romance paperbacks were all in Filipino. In fact, of course, you're very young, you probably don't remember Mills and Boon, but that Mills and Boon series was translated all over into different languages, but the translation never worked here. So we really originated our own romances. It didn't work. The translation of the Mills and Boon to Filipino did not sell, but it started the writing of local romances. So that also helped in the production of local titles, aside from the Anvil effort, which was really large scale. Like we were producing 100 titles, almost 100 titles a year. But still, I mean, to date, it's still a 24-to-1 ratio between imported books and local titles.
Just because of the dominance of books coming in from other countries.
From the United States, yes. And this is really traceable to our colonial past. It's a kind of where the medium of instruction was English. The curriculum was very much Western and US based.
Mhm.
Whatever was being taught in the United States was just brought here. I mean, we in the early 1900s, we had kids reciting the Declaration of Independence and by Thomas Jefferson, and all these things. So uh, it uh, it kind of Filipinized a bit towards, but it was still maybe just the social studies and Filipino in our language became bilingual, but
Mhm.
all the other subjects were still being taught in English.
And are you seeing more books published now in Filipino and seeing more support for local writers? I mean, have these efforts
Yes,
you started
definitely.
worked?
Yeah, definitely. Uh, there are, yes, after the romances, there were other genres that are now being written in Filipino. Uh, and there are other also, um, with the English, our other market was the Filipino expats abroad. But that
Mhm.
was also kind of difficult. In the 90s, there was some kind of distribution because there were Filipinos overseas who started a chain of outlets for food and for other products and brought in books, no, some of the books. But that
Mhm.
that also was they shut down because of a domestic problem. So the Filipino, after the romances, there were other things. So other genres now were beginning to be written in Filipino. So not just they had personal essays, poetry, all the other fiction. So now Filipino, of course, the books that are written in Filipino sell more because this is the language of the people, and
Mhm.
usually they're in paperbacks and more accessible. And I think I don't know if I'm jumping to other questions, but the other what stimulated also writing in for a bigger market is that the different social media platforms
Mhm.
also democratize the publishing in a way, because now anyone can publish, self-publish, publish online, and then print it later.
Mhm.
And because our digital we're called digital natives, about 87% of the population are online. So they're also the biggest writers on Wattpad, and whatever becomes big on Wattpad is then also printed. So they
Mhm.
also look at what's happening online, and then they also print copies. And so that has definitely, I mean, I've got come to a point where I see young people screaming for writers. I mean, that never happened before. It's just celebrities, right? Actors and actresses, but now you see that they know certain writers they follow on Wattpad, and so yeah, you get they have huge following, they have fans, yeah, and they get their copies signed.
I mean, it's encouraging to see so many fans of writers and also to see the market respond to local
Right.
writers. Are you seeing alongside the growth of interest for local writers in the Philippines, also are you seeing interest from abroad in your local writers? Are there more of your
Yeah,
local writers being published?
because for a long time we were kind of keeping to our local market, because our local market is really big. I mean, we have 110 million people, and if you're just producing 5,000 copies of a title, that's nothing, no? So
Yeah.
at least now you can have bestsellers that sell 30,000 copies, 50,000 copies in Filipino, no? So
Mhm.
um, the interest we began to, so because for a long time we were just producing books for ourselves, then we began to go back to the Frankfurt Book Fair maybe in 2014, 2015.
Mhm.
Because before that, in the 90s, we were able to go, but they were usually on special programs of the Frankfurt Book Fair where you don't have to spend, you're selected to participate in an invitational program and just bring a cross section of books, no, that will represent your country. But but then that time we didn't see that, there was interest in our books, and it was always one way. We were always the ones buying, looking at books or products that we could bring back to sell to schools and to other niche markets. So, but in 2014, 2015, we started going back, and I think it really takes time. You have to be there many years and to showcase your books. And slowly, children's books were beginning to be, rights to our children's books began to be bought. There'd be Mandarin, Vietnamese, Thai editions of many a few of our children's titles. And then the interest also is growing. I think they're interested in graphic novels and comics, because that's also a recent development for us here. I mean, before we had a great comics tradition, but that was in Filipino and it was cheap. It's like a magazine instead of books.
Yeah.
And when the comics was revived, it became this type of graphic novels, now more in English, now more expensive, but maybe that's the way that it's been able to link to the international market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it does take a while to build these international connections. And I know you were a very early champion of the Philippines becoming guest of honor at the Frankfurt Book Fair. Was it because of the trips you took to the book fair, or can you talk a little bit about getting to the point where, you're gearing up for 2025?
Right. Well, we have to be, if it were just us in the industry, I don't think we would have thought of trying to be guest of honor, but it was really one of our senators, Senator Lauren Legarda, who I approached just to support a decent national stand at the Frankfurt Book Fair. And when she went one time to see what it is, because she's really a senator who's been supporting our Biennale, international exhibitions. She supports a lot of culture and arts projects, and even climate change, anything that has to do with the environment. So I thought that she might be the right person to ask about supporting the Philippine book participation at the Frankfurt Book Fair. And she did give the book board money, and when she went one time, she found out, I think that was Indonesia was just guest of honor. This was 2015, 10 years ago. And she said, if Indonesia can make it, I think the Philippines can make it. So it was actually she who was very resolute and wanted for us to be, she had so much faith in the book industry that she said we should do this. And every year we would meet with the Buchmesse officials, Jürgen and everybody else. And we started doing a bid book, which when I did the bid book, I thought of Rizal as the connection. Jose Rizal is our national hero. And his first novel was printed in Berlin, published in Berlin, printed in Berlin by a press that was run by all women, managed by all women. Cool. And this novel is supposed to be what started the Philippine Revolution in 1896, which was the first revolution in Southeast Asia against colonial and imperial power. So there was a connection. So we pegged our bid and connection, the whole idea for the GOH, because the senator really pushed us that we should do this. Then the pandemic happened. We didn't think we would get it. And we were just told in August of 2023, last year. So we have very short, compared to others, we just have 1.5 years to prepare. But they kept saying, but you've been here since 2015. So I think, and also an advantage in terms of translation, maybe over Indonesia, is we have a lot of books in English already, that we
Yeah.
could immediately offer to German publishers and other foreign publishers.
I mean, I think a lot of countries would be envious of having such strong government support for the book industry, and it's clearly a really, really important part of what you all are doing. I think just one more question about Frankfurt. As when you founded Anvil with the mission of amplifying local voices, and now your role as the head of the literary program for Frankfurt in 2025, can you give us just a teaser or a preview of the aspects of Filipino literature that you want to showcase and highlight, and what you want people to take away from the programming?
Mhm. For the Pavilion exhibition, we really want to show our best. I mean, and it should be a showcase of the literary development. So from our literature can be described as an alternating between acquiescence and resistance, because you have colonial masters, and then colonial mentality, that you didn't have the master anymore, but still your mind has been conquered and your tastes have been shaped. So
Mhm.
we are trying to in a way show the what has been in a way suppressed, because we were a victim of history. Uh, uh, so
Yeah.
we a casualty of history. So we are trying to speak back. We're trying to show um, how we developed our literature. So we want to be able to show books that are pioneering, unique, and represented an aspect of our culture, very important. That's for the pavilion. And we've been given a limit. I thought in the beginning we could do 1,000 books, but now we were told that the pavilion has to be an experience. It shouldn't be a library, according to the Bookmesse people. So we are down to just putting there 500. So it's becoming even harder to select the
Yeah.
best 500 of our book publishing history. No? So, but for the markets, like we have a national stand and we have satellite stands. So that's where we work with the different experts, with the stakeholders and the players in the different genres, so
Mhm.
that because they know they've been in touch with many of these foreign publishers, they know what they are interested in, was expressed interest in what title. So we have this year alone, we have 4 satellite stands. We have one for graphic novels and comics, for children's books, for new adult, and for the social sciences and academics and the arts. So 5 at the big stand, and then 4 satellite stands. So we're showcasing the books that we think will be marketable in terms of selling rights, because
Mhm.
sometimes you think it's just you're limited to publishers who have some kind of cultural advocacy, right? I mean, the publishers who want to be inclusive and expose maybe the German market to a diverse and another culture. But and often they're not, I mean, it's the reality, right? I don't think I'm not sure we will have a bestseller in Germany, but 2 of the novels of one of our top writers, Jose de Lisay, have been translated by Transit to German, and we
Mhm.
have also a collection of poetry that's been translated to German. So we that was launched last year, so we are excited to know how they're doing. But the publisher did a second book, so I would think that maybe that's kind of encouraging. So I hope
Definitely.
it's working. Yeah.
Well,
So
fingers crossed for a Filipino bestseller
yeah, in Germany. Yeah, 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 yeah,
in Germany and elsewhere, definitely.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm super
Well,
excited to see more from the Philippines. I mean, you obviously are putting so much into this project and showcasing the entirety of your book industry and the history leading up to today. And I think everybody at the book fair will benefit for sure from interacting with the Philippines. So I hope that I hope we see a bestseller, and we're looking forward to seeing you
Yes,
at the Frankfurt Book Fair this year and in 2025.
yes. Thank you.